A global namaste to you all. A very good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are tuning in today. If you are watching us for the very first time, welcome. I'll just quickly share the format of our broadcast. So my name is Nishit. I'm here from the team of Hindu Academy. We meet online every Saturday at 2 o'clock UK time. And the purpose of this live stream is basically to answer any questions that you, the viewers, may have around the topic of Hinduism. Now, we do have a focus topic for the day. Today, the topic is going to be about Karwa Chauth and human relationships. And to explore that further, we will have a little video that we will play first, and then we'll have a little discussion around the topic. And then later on in the session, we will open up for a general question and answer session on Hinduism. Now, how can you get involved? There are several things you can do. Number one, if you haven't yet subscribed or followed us on any of our channels online, please do so. We are on youtube.com/Hindu Academy. We are also on facebook.com/Hindu Academy. Come on in, join the conversation, and you'll have lots of fun and interesting topics to explore. The other thing you can do is share this broadcast. Share it with friends and family who can join in on the conversation and then help us enrich it by contributing their questions, thoughts, and comments. So without any further ado, let me just share the focus topic video of the day, and then we will be back shortly to discuss the topic of Karwa Chauth. And if you'll give me just one moment, I will bring the video up.
Mr. Lakhani, we saw in that little short clip that we had about Karwa Chauth itself, but what's the relevance of Karwa Chauth?
You see, sometimes the Hindus or most people of all religions forget why we celebrate certain festivals. This is the bad thing. If you forget why you're doing it, perhaps it becomes counterproductive and you're not even aware of it. So it's necessary to keep refocusing on the why rather than the how of any festival. Now, all festivals, if you analyze, of every religion can be subdivided to have three features to themselves. One, it can be changing of seasons. We do celebrate change of seasons. For example, Karwa Chauth and Diwali festival celebrate the end of harvest festival. So it's time to celebrate. You see, religions will encourage us to celebrate all these kind of ideas. So first thing is, if you like, changing of season. The second aspect to all these festivals, etc., is the narrative, the story behind it. Now the story may have historic basis or sometimes purely mythological basis, pure narrative. So even in the Karwa Chauth, we have this idea of end of the harvest festival. There is a narrative behind it, and I think one or two pujaris were talking about the narrative. So that's the second aspect to it. We are trying to refocus or replay the narrative that on this particular day this thing happened and this produces beneficial result for society. So that's the second aspect. The third aspect, which is perhaps much more relevant. The third aspect celebrates human relationships.
Right.
You see, people forget about that. So, for example, whenever you celebrate, say, Raksha Bandhan, you're celebrating the relation between a brother and sister.
Yes.
Karwa Chauth, in a way, represents celebration between husband and wife, the relationship between husband and wife. And we all know how crucial it is in the modern world because marriages crack up so easily. So to have a festival which celebrates this kind of linkage, if you like, the relationship between man and woman, and raises it a little bit, is useful and is necessary and wonderful. So here the idea is this, that the wife will fast for the whole day, not even have anything to drink.
Or anything, yes.
It's a very severe discipline. In a way, festivals in a way sometimes force us to discipline ourselves, show that we are more than animal. We can control ourselves. So this is what it signifies. The idea behind is this, that she puts in the discipline to show her devotion. She wishes her husband have a long life, long and healthy life. And in return, of course, the husband must pamper her, And of course, buy her lovely, expensive presents.
Yeah.
And of course, with this Bollywood phenomena, this has taken on a new kind of dimension. Because now these things celebrated in big hoo-ha, and you have the whole family is getting together.
Are we losing what the actual relevance is of Karwa Chauth now because of Bollywood? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, well, it can enhance or it can sometimes denigrate. We must be aware of the risk involved. So sometimes some of these festivities get out of control. They become very expensive exercise for the family to cater for. You must take into account the needs of the family as well. And somehow if you insist that they spend huge amounts of money to celebrate and invite all the families and relations,
Okay, so Mr. Lakhani, why is it that only females keep the fast? If it's a celebration of marriage, why is the male not keeping the
Madam,
fast
you
as well?
hit the nail on the head. I was going to bring it out myself.
Okay.
You see, it's wonderful to expect the wife to discipline herself
Yeah.
and not eat and drink for the whole day, wishing her husband a long and healthy life. Why not the other way around?
Yeah.
In a modern society.
Precisely.
And as I said, if you realize the relevance of this issue, then you see you can insist that in modern times you can produce a new festival where the husband shows the discipline and the wife treats him to perhaps a present or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because modern women earn perhaps as much as the man, and perhaps they can buy husband the gifts as well. You see, in a way, it's necessary to focus. Why? This idea of a patriarchal society where women are considered to be secondary, where they are in a way patronized, pampered. Look, you are a nice person, you look after me, and I'll buy you gifts and I'll pat you on the back. This is not on in the modern society. We need to evolve with the times. And if you lose track of why you're celebrating first, then this can happen. Because it just becomes a tradition. The wives have to do it, the husband have to just buy presents, and that's full stop. That's not right. The second issue that perhaps we need to focus on, when you lose track of why we celebrate, we sometimes lose serious ideas. For example, as we evolve, for example, in India, the wife will only eat and drink after she has a sight of the moon.
Yes.
Okay? You live in United Kingdom.
We have clouds.
Sun and moon are difficult to find.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now what happens in United Kingdom? Poor wife will be starving herself. So you see, if once you realize this is purely the external, getting sight of the moon is an external aspect. It's just the discipline of fasting for the whole day that counts. Then you can adjust accordingly.
Yeah.
You see, this ability to evolve with the changing circumstances, the changing times, and the changing location, as in this case, is so crucial in religions. For example, at the moment they're talking about the open-air funeral, bringing back in United Kingdom.
We're going to leave that one alone, but thank you very much for coming this morning, Mr. Lakhani, to explain in layman's terms more than anything else the relevance of Karwa Chauth.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you very much.
So there you have it. It is a festival that is quite popular, especially in the north of India and in a number of regions. But to carry this conversation forward, I'd like to invite the rest of my team on the call. Today we have full house. We've got Manish Bhai, we've got Sita Ben, we've got Vijay Bhai, and as usual, I'm going to hand over to Manish Bhai to speak about today's focus topic and carry the conversation forward. Over to you, Manish Bhai.
Thank you very much, Nisit Bhai. Namaste viewers, thanks for joining with us today. We are talking about Karwa Chauth today and human relationships. The reason being the Karwa Chauth just went last Wednesday, 12th of October. And it's a very popular festival, and we see it in Bollywood movies, and Indian TV channels will have some, soap operas talking about and something happening regards to Karwa Chauth. So it is quite popular, and it's getting popular, I think, in rest of India as well due to television coverage. So what is your point of view on this festival, Sita Ben?
Yes, so as Dad said in the video, a lot of these festivals, they celebrate seasonal change. So this comes at the time of the Harvest Festival, and it's something that's celebrated around the world, this idea of harvest and being thankful for what we've got from the harvest. But it's also, as Manish Bhai said before we came on air, it's like an Indian Valentine's Day in a sense. So it's basically celebrating the relationship between a husband and wife. And traditionally, it's the wife who does all the sort of strenuous strenuous hard work of fasting all day, not having anything to eat or drink. But now, obviously, we understand that, as times have moved on, and it's not so much a case of women having to do all the hard work anymore. It's really important that men also participate. I know that some men actually do the fast themselves as well. But perhaps one of the reasons for the origin of women being the ones doing the fast is, I read something about it also to do with men going out to war, and it's a case of women being there to sort of wish them well, protect them, do prayers for their protection and well-being when they go out to war. So it could also have come from that kind of an origin, but there's no denying that there was a patriarchal society, and we need to acknowledge it and move on from that and recognize that it's a very equal relationship between men and women. So we have this festival every year, but we should use it as an opportunity to promote equality between men and women as much as possible. Vijay Bhai?
Yeah, I think that's about it. I think Sita, just to add, I think, as Manish Bhai mentioned earlier, I think Nishit Bhai mentioned that in North India, it's primarily in North India where this festival is kind of carried out. And if you look at the states where it's popular, it's like, Himachal Pradesh, Haryana, Punjab, Uttar Pradesh, I think. So those states are actually, ironically, also for some of the states which have a lot of martial races. If you look at the Indian Army today, as Sita mentioned, they are the ones. You see, Gujarat is not part of them. As you know, Gujaratis are not that good when it comes to fighting, ironically. But so the martial race, so I think it could be very true that at one time, a lot of men were involved in kind of wars and stuff. So it kind of built up like that. But obviously now I think we have to see differently. But I mean, the festival itself is quite colorful because I think they go and buy pots, special pots or clay pots, and they color them beautifully. There's so much elaboration, around that festival. So it's very colorful, very beautiful. They wear beautiful clothes. And as I think Manish Bhai mentioned, I think Jay Bhai mentioned as well in the video that the Bollywood is actually kind of enhanced that. So it's become so popular. And it's become a very big kind of affair in this day and age. But I think we have to be careful that it doesn't become too much, money. Too much money is not spent on it. Otherwise, it loses the focus. And the focus is, as Sita mentioned, is to do with human relationships. So we have to make sure that core focus is not forgotten by throwing big parties and totally forget about it. That will not work either. So also, I think it's true that I guess it should be working both ways now because both are equal partners. And I think even men should have something similar the other way around. I guess because, I know I do fast sometimes when it's Navratri, so I do that anyway. So it's not, but there should be some sort of equal balance in that case. But regarding the festival, regarding the harvest festival, that's very true because I know, we don't celebrate the Karwa Chauth as such in Gujarat, but I do know that in Diwali, we celebrate the harvest festival as well because like I know that my mother doesn't eat aubergines at the moment. She stopped eating raw vegetables or sugarcane. Only after the harvest and after it's over to go on Diwali, we see actually have it. So Karwa Chauth and Diwali are very close to each other. So they both kind of fit very well at the harvest festival before the winter kind of crop is actually sown, which is the next thing after Diwali. We have the winter crop will be sown. So it's a very nice time, I guess, to mix relationships, to mix mythology, because it's a very wonderful time to do all this because you're having a wonderful harvest. So everything kind of fits in very nicely for festivals.
Wonderful to hear that, Sita Ben Vijay Bhai. So Vijay Bhai, in modern living and both husband and wife working, how important is this kind of festival that celebrates relation between husband and wife, who are the backbone of society in a way, backbone of Grihasthashram?
Yeah.
How important is it in modern life where the marriages are cracking up, and how it can, help save marriages and keep them going, Vijay Bhai?
Manish Bhai, I think it's very important because, our life is so mundane and so routine, every day. You come home, the wife cooks, you eat, you watch TV, you fall asleep, tomorrow you go. And slowly the relation becomes so much apathy that, yeah, okay, it's chalta, it goes on. How do you refresh that, bond? So it's so important we celebrate, different kinds of activities. Nowadays, of course, people kind of go to, psychiatrists and say, oh, have you done this? You should go watch movies together. You should do this together. You should talk more. So we have a modern life where, people even chat, even go call somebody from upstairs downstairs, you text on the handset, I'm downstairs, can you come now, right? So it's that kind of a situation. So people don't even communicate to each other. And I mean, the thing is, marriage is actually not only a material bond, it's actually a spiritual bond, as you know, in the Viva ceremony. So how do you keep that away in your mind that actually your bond is even spiritual, is more spiritual than actually material? And only way to do this is to have some sort of festival, some sort of a ritual or ceremony to remind you of that every so often. So I think it's very good. It's a pity you only have one of those a year, actually. Maybe you should have different kind of festivals to keep this bond, between husband and wife. It's very critical. I mean, in this day and age where everybody like a rat race, to try and, because materialism is kicked in now. You want to want money to buy big things, do this. How do you keep that bond going? So I think it's very crucial in that sense. Sita?
Yeah, I think that you're completely right. I mean, it would be wonderful to have more opportunities to sort of recognize the relationship between a husband and wife. And something which Dad always says in his videos, especially about marriage and the importance of looking after each other and putting the needs of each other before yourself, is something that's incredibly important. These days, we're all about me and my rights and my, me, whereas it should actually be about the other person as well. And that's what this festival does bring out. Even though it's a very old traditional festival, it does sort of emphasize, look, the wife is doing this fast for the husband is going out and getting a gift or pampering the wife. So you're doing something constantly for the other person, and that's essentially what spiritual living is all about. So this was a very sort of olden tradition, but we can update it. That's the wonderful thing about Hinduism. We don't have to keep to the same rigid sort of traditions of old rituals. We can update it. So the wife, as Dad said in the video, the wife can buy their husband a present as well. The husband can also engage in a fast as well. So we have to try and keep up with the times, make sure we keep this egalitarian relationship between a husband and wife, and make sure that we always put the needs of our partner before our own. And that's really how marriages work, because if you just focus on yourself and your own needs, your marriage is just going to fall apart. So the whole point of a marriage and having a family is to put the needs of others first. And that's essentially a brilliant place to practice spirituality and spiritual living.
That's wonderful to hear, Sita Ben. And that brings out the next point, that in a patriarchal society, it's like the whole burden of relationship is put on women, and they are expected to carry on that burden while men can do whatever they want. How do we address the situation, Sita Ben?
So I mean, I think really what's shifted in the last sort of few decades is that women are not stuck in the house, in the home anymore. They have been empowered to go out in the community, go out, get a job, have a career for themselves. And having this sort of economic empowerment is really important for women. It gives them that financial independence. And we need to sort of move away from the idea that women are only sort of complete if they are married or if they have a husband. Women are equal, and they have the full sort of capacity to be themselves in their own right without having the need to even get married. So I mean, many of my friends are not married and they're very happy with that scenario. So it doesn't need to be something where it's a life goal if it's not something that you want. So it's really important that we recognize and give women that dignity, that you can do what you want in your life, you can have the career that you want. So it's incredibly important to remember and dignify women in this way. And something else that Manish Bhai also mentioned is that these festivals, they have so far been predominantly about women, and they do these rituals together around Karwa Chauth, and it gives them an opportunity to develop a bond with other women from their villages and their community, and they can discuss any issues, as Manish Bhai said before, any marriage problems they can discuss. So in a way, it's like a real sort of community bond that the women have developed through this particular festival. But there's nothing to stop men also doing something similar and getting together and discussing their marital problems as well. So we have to kind of keep it as equal and as open as we can. Vijay Bhai?
Yeah, I think Sita, you have got it very beautifully. I think society has changed now. At one time, I guess society was so patriarchal, and there was things and so many taboo things that people couldn't discuss. Or women are the emotional ones, they have to do this, men have to be the macho guy, looking after. I think that has kind of changed a lot. And I think even now we see the taboo happening. Oh, you're a man, you can't be emotional, you can't discuss this, you can't really talk about marriage problem. Doesn't sound nice to your manhood or whatever. It's insane. I mean, I think society has changed a lot. So I think we have to move with the times. No doubt. I think to be honest, we can't say for medieval times how society was, and there are different reasons why it was very patriarchal. And I think I've just finished reading, I think I mentioned last time, Manusmriti, and it is very, very patriarchal actually. And you can't even imagine that this day you can live like that. It's insane. So I think we need to change with the times and accept that actually both can benefit. And it's quite, I mean, I know when I was growing up, I was told, oh, you can't have any girls who are friends, you have to have boys, you become this, all kinds of stuff is to be talked about. I think now, I'm thankful society has changed, because quite often some of the biggest support can be women, give strength to men, and vice versa. So I think we need to break that taboo kind of between men and women and discuss openly. Even if men, they can say emotional things, women can talk about mature things. That's absolutely fine. So I think we need to change, Manish. That's all I can add to this. Yeah.
This is a very interesting discussion going on. And, what Sita Ben highlighted, that man needs to have this kind of discussion as well, and that kind of support. Because I think my point of view is that men don't normally, even when they are with their friends, they do not discuss problems. It's just they try to enjoy themselves and have a good time. But that emotional support or that emotional opening up with even a close friend is not there for men. Would you agree, Vijay Bhai? What's your point?
It's actually true. I'll give you my own example. I have a lot of friends. I got some really good friends who are, men. I also got some one or two girls, are very good friends, close friends. Ironically, I find it easier to discuss my emotional issues with my friends who are girls, actually, or women. Funny enough, I know it sounds strange, but it's how it is. But of course, I have also very good friends who are also, male. But I discuss with them, but not as much. I don't know why. I guess it's psyche. I still got to break their psyche myself. But yes, we should discuss that. I mean, you'd be surprised if you look at the figures in the UK. Actually, there's a lot of more men than women actually commit suicide because of all kinds of problems. And the biggest way to solve this problem is outlet. Talk to somebody. Yeah. So I think we need to take that into mind that this partly this festival, you should have both kind of festival. Both of them get a chance to talk about stuff and talk about internal issues, and both of them get a chance to progress spiritually and also emotionally. So I think both sides should open up too. But yes, it's an issue with men. I agree. When you go out, you try and forget your problems. That's what they do as you go to a merry party or drink. Not discuss, but forget. As women, I think much better at talking, each other. Have you noticed? I've noticed in a plane as well. You fly in a plane somewhere, I've noticed that myself. If the two women sitting next to each other, within 5 minutes, they talk to each other. They start discussing, if the two men sitting there, they'll be like, zombies sitting for the whole flight. They don't even say a word, right? So I think that's because society is so patriarchal, so deeply entrenched into us. We need to change that, right? And talk more, I guess. But I mean, this is one of the things that society is changing, and hopefully it gets better. Asita?
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And the fact that it's actually men who commit suicide more is a really important thing to remember, because in a way, we talk about women and the inequality of women, but there's also the stereotype of men and how men should behave. And, for many, many years, it was considered taboo for men to discuss their feelings, because you're like, oh, that's a very girly thing to do. And we need to sort of, get over that and really have, this opportunity for men to discuss any issues that they're having with their friends, and it not to be something to be looked down upon or frowned upon. So I think it's really important that women have this support network, and men also have that support network, because as Vijay Bhai said, talking about things can really make such a huge difference to your mental health.
In fact, Manish Bhai, you know what? You're quite right. And one of the things people have recognized is that the one place that men do end up talking is in the seat of the barber's shop. And so they're actually training barbers to look out for, to ask, to listen, and then to offer help, to spot signs of mental health issues or suicidal thoughts and things like that. And so it is quite a big issue for many kind of people in the society, especially when I look at the issues of young Black men. They seem to have this issue more even. And so, yeah, there are slowly people recognizing that this is a problem the finding ways to deal with this.
Wonderful. Hopefully, we can improve on this situation. My situation is same. I would hardly discuss my feelings even with my close friends. So there you go. So next question is, so women do fast, should men do fast as well and get together with other men and discuss these problems? And is the seeing of moon so important that we can't eat before seeing the moon? Sitaben?
So I mean that has been the tradition. I think basically having sight of the moon is basically a sign that you have fasted all day until it's nighttime, basically. So yeah, it's just sort of confirming the fact that you have fasted for the whole day without eating or drinking anything. And yeah, it does feel incredibly unfair that it's only been women who've had to do this sort of, you know, stressful thing. As Dad said in the video, actually, because I mean we live in the UK where it's cloudy like 99% of the time. I mean, it's sometimes you can't see the moon or the sun for days on end. What are you supposed to do in those kind of circumstances? So it's important to remember that these festivals, I think that's the great thing about Hinduism, is that we are not fixated on rituals and it has to be done in this particular way, in this particular method. So we have to sort of adjust with the times, you know, see what the needs are and see what the circumstances are and adjust our rituals and our festivals accordingly, because that's the whole point. If we keep sticking to this archaic vision of Hinduism, we're going to lose a lot of people. So it's really important to make sure we maintain that as far as possible. Vijay Bhai?
Yeah, I think Manish, by the idea of the moon, you know, it's interesting that if you look at the Asian countries, they have a lot of moon calendars because moon was generally visible in those areas, right? And it makes sense because if you don't have a clock, looking at the moon to work out, or if you don't have, you know, the sun is difficult in the equator especially. There's a change in season, no doubt, but it's not as distinct as say in the northern hemisphere, like in UK, where you can see that you can really feel it. You have rainy season and whatnot. So seeing the moon was one way of saying, okay, I know what day of the month it is, what day of the year it is. So it made sense to use the moon to work out. And it's quite interesting that even though they use the moon, the Indian calendar is still based on the stars. So it still works out eventually as 365 days. But moon was very easy to see. But yes, you're right. I mean, nowadays, I guess I'm thinking even in the future when people travel in space, you really can't use the moon. You can't even use the sun, for heaven's sake. What do you do that? You know? So things have to change with times, obviously. But in the UK, I guess you have to use the clock or something to work out. You can't. I mean, even now it's outside, it's clouds. There's no way you're going to see the moon. Or even sunrise, you can't see sometimes. I remember when I was working in northern Sweden a while back, the sun only shines for about 4 hours a day. I mean, how are you going to work out anything there? You know, and sometimes you see both the sun and the moon at the same time in the sky. What do you do? So it's very difficult, I think. But I guess it makes sense if you're in India, but not so around the world. Yeah. So we have to be practical and move with the times as well.
Super. So in places where you can't see the moon, maybe set a time deadline, 8 p.m., 9 p.m. and stick to that and open fast then, I suppose. We take a question from Christine Perillo. She's saying, I just don't understand where the whole idea of patriarchal society began and why, if women were once highly revered. So we see Vedic times, the women, equal rights, we see women rishis, the first idea of God as a woman in Rig Veda coming with Devi Suktam. Then what happened? How did this patriarchal society came in, Vijay Bhai?
Okay, I think we have to be fair that although it's true that women are revered in Hinduism in the sense that they can also be revered to goddess levels, but it's been a fact for since millennia that really women haven't had their due. We have to accept that. I mean, it's one thing to say in theory that women are revered, they worship, and I do as well, worship Durga, I worship all the time. But that doesn't translate into practice all the time. I mean, there are very many reasons. I know it is in the medieval times, there's a lot of wars, a lot of conquest of Islam, you know, India coming in, Islamic conquest, Persian conquest, and the British. So quite often people have been seen that women are being abused or, you know, taken away as trophies. So there was the idea that women should be kept locked. And once women can't express themselves, they can't go out, then they lose equality, because that's one thing to mention that, I mean, quite often it's been the case. I know when I was growing up as well, oh, you should stay in the house more. You If you can't participate in society equally, then patriarchy will not break. So women need to go out and participate. Men need to support women to go out and participate in jobs, in seminars, in any kind of pujas. If they take part, then automatically society will change. The key thing is that we need to break that mold that women can't do certain things. They can, and they should be encouraged to do so. If that happens, like I was very interesting that there's even now women pujas who do marriages. It's not, only men can do it. After a while, the taboo breaks, then automatically you see more women pujaris coming in, and society changes like that. So the key thing, women have to go out and participate in society and be seen to participate, and men should encourage that to happen. And if that happens, then society will change. You're right. I've read in the Gupta period in India, just after the Mauryan dynasty, Gupta period was one period where women flourished a lot, in terms of, you see all these dance academies, everything was happening. Women were doing business at that time. Then again, after a while, it stopped again. So I think on the whole, a lot of things are done because of historical reasons, because of wars. But I think we have to move away from that and get women to participate more and more. And that means women going out, literally going out and doing things, which is happening today, which is good in a way. Sita?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a real sort of problem, because in theory, women are God, and we revere the Mother Goddess, and it's a wonderful thing about Hinduism. But when you look at the practice, it's a whole different story. And unfortunately, it's one of those things that's happened not just in India, but across the world, that women have been given a sort of an inferior status for so many centuries throughout time. And I mean, it's very difficult to pinpoint an exact reason, but as Vijay said, maybe part of the reason could be, the fact that wars happened a lot. There were invasions which happened a lot, and women were sort of, in a way, taken by the conquerors, and taken as concubines and stuff like this. All sorts of very denigrating things used to happen to women. So I think maybe there was a need felt in society for them to be sort of kept locked away, kept within the inner quarters of the home, so that they're not sort of at risk of being taken away or being being abused even. So I think possibly that could be one of the reasons why. I mean, it's very difficult to pinpoint an exact reason over so many centuries of why this kind of thinking sort of crept in. But it's really wonderful that now humanity has recognized this mistake and is moving forward, and women are really given so much more dignity than we were. But we still do have a long way to go, and we hope that things continue on the same trajectory.
Wonderful, Sitaben. We take a next question from Mad Lab. It's saying, does full moon affect our psychological or physical state? Since our body also has 70% water and moon has a gravitational effect on the ocean and waves, does moon have psychological or physical, does the moon affect our physical, psychological and physical state? Vijay bhai?
Okay, I don't think so. I mean, I haven't read much on this, but all I can say is that, again, the idea of the moon pull is strongest in some places and not so strong in other places. If you're in the northern hemisphere, is not as impact as, let's say, on the equator. But I think the amount of effect, if so be it, is very low. Because don't forget, when you talk about gravity, there are multiple pulls, right, of gravity. If you're living in higher ground, then gravity affects you less. If in the ground level, it affects you more. Then if the moon is on the opposite side to the sun, then the effect is different. The sun side effect is different. So it depends on there's so many, natural events happening that we really can't work out. So I suspect the impact, if at all, is very low. But of course, all this can be used to, to decide. People use all these events to kind of enhance them. I don't think there's much effect, but I'm not an expert in that field, so really I can't say on that. Anything you can add, Sita, on that?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I'm not an expert either, but it reminds me very much of, people do have this kind of thinking that, the full moon can somehow change your behavior. Like we have this idea of werewolves, for example. So that's kind of in the thinking that, you know, these kinds of natural events can affect your maybe your mood. And I know that, you know, the moon has a strong influence on the way things work in the world, like, you know, the tides and all of that. So it's important to acknowledge and recognize that. But on a human level, I don't know. I don't know if it has any sort of impact. I know that, you know, during the full moon periods, we, you know, as Hindus, we like to celebrate, for example, Sharad Punam. We like to celebrate the full moon, and it looks so beautiful in the sky. So it's a wonderful opportunity to admire nature and admire the beauty of the moon, really.
Wonderful answer there, Sitaben Vijaybai. So I guess when the full moon is there, you have that beautiful light in the nighttime. So if we think pre-electrification period, people would have complete dark during no moon days, and full moon days would be much nicer, and that kind of effect as well. But yes, it's something for the scientists to work out and do some research on, I suppose. We take a next question. I think we finished with this Karwa Chauth topic. Now we'll take a general Q&A. So viewers, please do send your questions, and we'll try and take as many as we can. The first question from Thomas Roberts is, he's saying Shakti is first mention of God, but God is a Greek word. Before that, it is extraterrestrial in Rig Veda. I'm not sure if I agree with that. So he's saying, how do you say God in Hindi or Sanskrit? And yes, I'm not sure if I understand the question correctly. Shakti is the first mention of God in Rig Veda, I suppose, or as Jaibai has mentioned in some of the videos as well. But God is mixing the Western word God, which is a Greek term. And then he's saying extraterrestrial in Rig Veda. What's your take on it? And what is the Sanskrit or Hindi word for God, Vijaybai?
Okay, first of all, I guess, I'm not sure, but I guess Thomas means, by extraterrestrial means beyond of this, out of this world in that sense. But yes, I think one thing to keep in mind is that we use the word God, is a limitation, no doubt, but because we use the English language, that's why. But the thing is, the Upanishads or the scriptures of authority, they talk about Brahman, the principle, universal principle. I think when you talk about God, it's got this connotation that he looks like a human, but albeit more powerful and, you know, more extrapolated. That's how God comes in our mind when you think of God like that, like, you know, the Greek gods we had. But actually in Hinduism, from the very earliest period, we have recognized that God is actually not human. He can't be human-like. He has to be a principle. Because in Hinduism, all life has souls. So why should it look like only one particular physical body of one soul? Why not universe? The universe is full of trees, plants, animals. So God has to be a principle. But of course, when you bring him down to a finite level, then you can have many names for it. I mean, of course, in Gujarati, we call him Bhagwan, you know. You can say there are many different names of God. But in defense, I would say the word Brahman kind of suits best in that sense, to say that who's the ultimate principle. So God is, yeah, it's okay. We live with it because it's how we use it, God. But I think in that sense, God is, in Hinduism, is a bit more than just, you know, person sitting in the throne or in the heavens somewhere. That's all I can add. I guess different languages in India will have different names for God in a kind of, so to say, Mandarin language, which I can't say. All I can say in Gujarati, we say Bhagwan means, you know, God. Yeah. So that's what I guess you can say. But when a God has got 1,000 names, it's got so many different names. People can use whatever name they want. Sita, you add to that.
Yeah, no, I think you've covered it amazingly. I think it's really important to remember that it's also to do with the translation, because all of these sort of discoveries were written about in Sanskrit and in Indian languages from the Hindi perspective. And, you know, when we sort of move to the English language, there are a lot of words that we've had to adopt which don't necessarily fit exactly with the Sanskrit translation. For example, we call the idea of religion dharma, which means, you know, trying to find the unity behind the diversity, whereas the English word religion is more about how we realign ourselves with a personality called God. So it's got a slightly different meaning behind it. So I think it's important to remember that ancient Hindu philosophy didn't focus on, you know, a particular form of God right at the beginning. It focused on a more principle-based system of thinking and trying to, in a way, very scientifically find the commonality, find the similarities behind all of the diversity that we see in the world. So this idea of God as a person came later. So it was more about the idea of Dharma, trying to make sense of the world, make sense of what is there, which is underpinning everything. So we have all of these English words which we have adopted, which don't quite fit exactly with the ancient sort of Hindu Sanskrit way of looking at it. We had the idea of Dharma, and as Vijay Bhai said, the idea of Brahman, and we didn't have so much this idea of religion, aligning ourselves with God and God as a person. That came later.
That's wonderful to hear, Sitaben Vijay Bhai. Jay Bhai has done specific, video on concept of God in Hinduism. So it is not same as the Greek word God, and it's a limitation that we have to use this word because we are operating in English language, and it's a kind of limitation. We can't be explaining every single words whilst discussing general questions. So that is the term we still continue to use, and we are happy to use that, not a problem. But Jay Bhai has done video on concept of God with and without form, and some lengthy discussion on that as well. So if you do have a chance, please do view that video to see and understand what is the Hindu idea of God. We take the next question from Samarth Mishra. He's saying, I have a difficult question, as there is no proper answer to why this creation and how we got manifested from the absolute. Then how can we be sure that enlightenment will give us ultimate liberation? So he's saying there is no proper answer to why this creation and how we got manifested from the absolute. Then how can we be sure that enlightenment will give us ultimate liberation? Sitaben?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. And it's something that there's, many philosophers have been scratching their heads over for centuries. So I think the wonderful thing is that in Hinduism, we are quite blunt about the answer to this question, like why is the way everything is? And we are honest. We say, we don't know. We don't know why this creation has been created in this way, why the cookie crumbles in this particular way, why there is so much suffering, and why we are born and we have this idea of reincarnation and being come over and over again. We don't know why things are the way they are. And the only thing that we know is that we have to make spiritual progress. And in Hinduism, that's done through trying to, find God or become enlightened. And the only proof or any kind of guidance that we have is the experience of people who have gone before us, people who are rishis, people who are saints, who claim to have had these amazing spiritual experiences. So what they have said has been written down, and we use that as a signpost to help us on the way. And to be honest, we don't know if we are going to become enlightened by following it. We are honest about it. But we say if we want to find some kind of escape from this world, which is just full of inevitable suffering, this is probably the only sort of hope that we have, is to follow what these teachers have told us. And the teachers also say, don't hang on to us. Make your own progress based on what we have said and see where it takes you. And hopefully you'll find that you become enlightened. And it's one of those things, it's a trial and error thing. And it's a very personal experience to be enlightened. So it's not something which, can be taught or read about in a book and you become enlightened. You have to actually go on the journey yourself and see what happens. In a way, it's a very sort of scientific approach, because it's like, say, reading a scientific theory in a book saying this produces this and produces this. And you're like, okay, let me see I follow this experiment myself and see what happens. And hopefully you'll reach the jackpot. And when you are enlightened, you will know it. That's what Dad has said so many times in the videos, is it's such a clear-cut experience. You will know that you have reached that destination. But it's one thing to read about it and another thing to try and put it into practice. And we all are struggling on that journey, and hopefully we can all reach that destination and escape this cycle of endless suffering. Vijay Bhai?
I think Sita, you are spot on that. I think the thing is, it's not only that we are saying this, actually in the Rig Veda as well, there's a very famous Ashukta, Nashadya Shukta, which is, I think, Mandala 10, verse 129. Actually, that verse makes it very clear that whence did this world come from? Maybe the gods know, maybe the gods do not know, because they may not even be here. I mean, the the fact is this: before there was no universe, there was no idea of space and time. So you can't even have a god, which is a god. You see all these stories about gods, doing wars and Indralok. You can't have gods if there's no space and time. So even the gods perhaps are not there. They came after creation. We really can't say for sure. But I think what we can say is that we have a lot of great personalities in this world who actually experience the idea of enlightenment firsthand. And we can use the Sita message, we can use that as a guide. And so perhaps there's something out there. Also for us, if we think about ourselves, we can choose to have two beliefs. You can say, okay, we are just matter. We live in this space-time. When the world ends, when the world ends, we'll be dying anyway. So there's nothing into us. Or you can say, look, there's something in me which transcends this universe. And what is that thing that exists in me? And what can I do to find out? And we know from, at least from Indian experience, that a lot of rishis have resolved this question. They found out who they truly are. And that true thing that they have, the idea of Atman and Brahman, that actually transcends the idea of space-time, the idea of the universe. And that's what we kind of aim for, because we have seen from past experience of past rishis. And that's what is the guide we use to go. But you're right, Sita mentioned, we can never say for sure until we experience for ourselves firsthand.
Wonderful answer, both Sita Ben and Vijay Bhai, very well explained. Just want to add that, you don't have to follow traditional pathways to discover. You can make up your own pathway. And this is a line of inquiry. So you could use your knowledge, intellect to try to get there as well. You use a Gnana Yoga. It doesn't have to be bhakti or karma or, yoga or meditation. So you could just use it as an inquiry and don't have to follow traditional path if you don't like them. We take the next question from Cherish Jubilee. She's saying, I discovered Hinduism through discovering I was Hindu by discussing Druidry with a friend in India. Can you please explain why we don't discuss the commonality between other philosophies more often? So commonalities with Druidry and stuff like that. And she's saying, there is a detrimental disconnect between European faiths when it came from the same. Sita Ben?
Yeah, I love the name Cherries Jubilee. That's great. Yes, I think it's really important to make sure that, because religion is always a source of contention. It's always something you avoid discussing at a dinner party. It's always one of those things that you avoid talking about because it's so controversial, because every religion from the outside looks so different. And when you talk about the different theories of, for example, life after death and this theory and that theory, they all sound completely different. And you just think, what the heck is going on? Is there no common ground whatsoever? But actually, it's really important to say, all of these religions are trying to find a resolution to the human condition. Let's look at the similarity, the commonality, and try and find that sort of unity behind all of these different words and different teachings which have been shared across the world in different periods of history. So it's really nice to have that opportunity to see religion as not a source of conflict, but as a source of working together to try and find a resolution to the human condition. That's really what it's all about. So yeah, I think another very important thing to remember is that we are living in a very globalized world where we are in contact with so many different religious traditions and no religion as well. And it's important to know how to interact and how to look at the commonality of our human condition together rather than fight over different theories and practices. So any opportunity we have for interfaith dialogue and community cohesion is very important. And I think I'd really like to refer to the life of Sri Ramakrishna, whose life was a living example of pluralism, this idea that there are so many different ways of making spiritual progress. He was able to practice Christianity, Islam, so many different sectarian movements within Hinduism. He was able to practice and be successful in all of them. And through his life, we are able to see that they all do lead to the same destination. So it's wonderful to look up to him as a role model for community cohesion and interfaith dialogue. Vijay Bhai?
Yeah, it's a very interesting question from Cherry. Just to add to what Sita said, it's interesting that you mentioned about Druidry, because you see the thing about Hinduism is, as Sita mentioned, we are pluralist. We believe in many pathways to go to God. And ironically, if you look at the Rig Veda, there are some verses to Soma where they use this special drink to try and alter experiences, right? So in many ways, Hinduism kind of encompasses nearly all the beliefs of the world. Because look at the ancient beliefs of, the African traditions or Indian American traditions, the idea of trance state, they go in a dream state and they do try and see see who they are in different state. And that has kind of also been documented in the Vedas. In fact, Vedas is really special because it's got and it's basically an encyclopedia of entire human experiences of all kinds actually in the Vedas. That's what's really special. So I'm not surprised that we see this commonality everywhere. Regarding the European faith, I think there's some branches of European faiths who tend to be exclusive, and they tend to not accept that there can be any synergy. But even that is changing now, because I have met a lot of Christians who are saying actually there's a link between how nature worship takes place in Christianity. So it is changing now. But there are many, I think, there's so many branches of European faiths who are still very exclusive, and they refuse to accept, paganism or druidry. I said, no, that is not us. So I think that they still have to break that barrier, I guess. But for Hindus, we have no problem with that. We have to discuss all kinds of ways to find your true self. So I'm glad you found your place, which is good, Cherry, that you found out through your experiences who you are. It's really good. And I hope, as Sita mentioned, there's more and more talk of discovering. There's more interfaith dialogue where people can discuss, issues and trying to find commonality between different philosophies.
Okay, we take a last question for today. We're looking to wrap up. We are in last 10 minutes. So extra part is asking, saying there is no evidence of Vedic period temples or stupas or anything. So he's saying probably Vedic period is not real. It's not. It's something just in theory and didn't exist. Is this true? There is no evidence of Vedic period, Vijay Bhai?
Oh, no. There is a lot of evidence of Vedic period. I think you are right that in the Vedic period, you will not find as many, temples, great temples built. In the early Vedic period, there was not that many great temples built, but there was a lot of individualistic, schools or Brahmanical schools where fire worship was done, havans were done. And that is all documented in the Rig Veda, actually. You see that a lot. Even the very first was Agni, Mite, Purohita. So all this was very, very, very common at that time. But you're right, there was no thing like huge temples dedicated to big deities. That came later. But regarding literary evidence, even archaeological, there's a lot of evidence to show that there was Vedic beliefs. There's no doubt about that. But you're right, there's no major monuments that you will not find. Sita?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's difficult to know for sure exactly what happened in history at this particular time, but I think the incredible thing that we do get from the Vedic time is the Vedas and the findings of the Upanishads and all of these incredible things which are still really important to Hinduism today. So much of the philosophy was developed during this time, and it's really important to value and nurture that today.
Okay, over to you, Nisit Bhai.
And what a fantastic session we've had so far. Where has the time flown? Now, normally we would be running for about 50 to 55 minutes. So this is the end of the broadcast for today. And we had a really wonderful topic. Let me just recap what it was. We were talking about Karwa Chauth and human relationships. And we discussed many things around the festival. And we also discussed things. The topic went a little bit sideways into how the society was patriarchal. And there's now a much more balanced view between males and females in the society. Society has certainly evolved from the times of old Hinduism. And so today we've had a lot of new people onto the call as well. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. You bring a fresh new vibe to the session. And this session is all down to you. You are the ones who drive the questions, and we simply just try and answer them as best as we can. Now, to help you along, if you're a new member and you want to find out more about Hinduism, we got something that you can rely upon other than the weekly broadcast that you're enjoying here. We've got a website, it's hindu-academy.com. If you go to our website, you will be able to access a couple of resources. Firstly, you'll be able to access an e-learning course that we have got. We've got around 8,500 students on that course now. And it's great because it will help you to get started on your journey to Hinduism, giving you a good foundational course on Hinduism. We also have an advanced Hinduism course there, which is geared towards the students of the GCSE Hinduism examination sort of curriculum. We also have our YouTube channel, which is on youtube.com/Hindu Academy. Over there, we have well over 3,000 videos, and we regularly do post videos every week. So my suggestion would be to hit the bell icon and subscribe so that you can be notified every time a little golden nugget comes out on YouTube. The playlists on YouTube are also very well organized, and you will find little topics that you can go and explore within Hinduism. And there is something for everybody, whether you're a beginner, intermediate, or in advanced Hinduism study. The final thing we've got is the ebooks that we are giving away freely. These are books that were sold on Amazon previously. They were used in the schools here for the study of the Hinduism curriculum, but we're giving them away freely as a PDF. So simply go to hindu-academy.com and look for the books there. You can download them easily. Next week, I will bring a QR code that I will share on the screen, and then you can just directly subscribe to our WhatsApp groups. This is something I haven't really shared much recently, but we have an amazing resource here where we share little bite-sized content, 3 minutes, and that'll give you the good start to your day that you need. So once again, I'm going to bring up on screen the team here. Excellent job today, Manish Bhai. Well done, Vijay Bhai and Sitaben. And overall, I really enjoyed the session today. Folks, you've been a great audience. Thank you so much for sharing all your thoughts, comments, questions online, and we look forward to seeing you next week on Saturday, 2 o'clock. Now, next week, we will be celebrating the Diwali occasion. Diwali is a great festival celebrated by Hindus, Sikhs, and Jains. And in fact, last week, we celebrated Diwali on Trafalgar Square, where there were 37,000 people come on the square on that one day. So it's amazing to be part of the largest open-air celebration of Diwali in the world outside India. And that's the rich cultural heritage we bring with us here to the heart of Europe. And, London, such an iconic city. So with that, I'd like to just say bye-bye. I will see you at 2 o'clock next week.